Welcome back to the Wildboro podcast, and welcome Adé.
Hey, how you doing?
Welcome to Inside the Dome. Adé, you and I met at the Mojave Center back in November, and you had come over there to plaster for a couple days. And for me, I felt like we kind of connected or clicked sort of right away. And I'm really glad that we've stayed in touch. And you've ended up coming out here and helping with the last two dome builds. And the last build, you were here the entire time. I felt like you were a really critical part of the team.
Thank you.
You bring a lot to the table. You have a lot of architecture background and building skills. And in addition, just as far as the group, you're a very thoughtful person. And you've had a lot of life experiences that I think have been really valuable to have you around to provoke others and seeing you be influenced by people has been really enjoyable for me. So speaking of your life experiences, I think you have a really interesting story to share, and also I think you're at a really interesting spot in your life right now. You're about to take off on a big road trip that I know you've been putting a lot of thought into, and I think you're in a similar place where a lot of people are, where it's like maybe not totally satisfied with where you're at, or maybe seeking something more and a little apprehensive about taking that step. So, but before we get to that, let's kind of get into your story a little bit.
Sure.
I guess, how did you end up at the Mojave Center? I know there's some Earthship things involved there, and maybe just walk us through your background in architecture in college, and maybe how you got to that point, if that's a good starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I begin, thank you for saying such kind and thoughtful, just sharing kind and thoughtful feelings about me. I appreciate that. Yeah, I studied Earthships in Taos last year, April 2024, and I met some amazing people while I was down there, and one of them was Danny. And Danny, not long after, we were all there for our unique reasons. And not long after that, Danny, we stayed in contact after everyone finished the academy. We wanted to connect again in the future sometime, and she was in Arizona, and I was living in Arizona. She came down from Colorado, and she said I should come up for a couple days, and I don't know, there was something telling me not to go, or I don't know if it was fear or whatnot. Fear's been more of a larger player in my life recently, as compared to before. But no, she was there. I came up for a couple days. I met you, and I immediately felt, I don't know, I can't, there's a lot of feelings I have that I can't put into words sometimes. So, and my mom always validates that, and she met you, and she felt there was an instant connection with you, and just your hiking background and whatnot. I was very, very intrigued, just by the way you carried yourself. So yeah, through Danny, through the Earthship experience, I drove down to Hereford. While down there, I decided to forego what I built out in my 4Runner and get the travel trailer. But yeah, I don't want to get too far into the weeds with that. But I do have a background in architecture from Arizona State University. Worked for a few firms. One was residential. Another one was, I would say, we dealt commercial. And then the most recent one before I began another journey decades ago was we did a lot of international projects. But after I left the country in my early 20s, I never picked up architecture again. But
out of curiosity, what led you to study architecture in school?
yeah, I loved art. I loved to draw, and early on you're trying to do your best to carve a nice life out for yourself, and art just didn't seem like it would be, I don't know, it seemed like it would be a pretty hard life financially. And I believe that architecture was the cleanest transition. And I did enjoy it, but I don't know. It just it didn't stick, and I didn't miss it.
So you worked in architecture for several years after college.
Yes.
What was your experience like with that? And I guess you ultimately ended up leaving that, and kind of what led to that happening.
Yeah, absolutely. It was good. I was a drafter, in each of my roles. Yeah, what was it was I don't know what it was. It was like I said, it was what it was. It was exactly what I needed. I've never really given that question a lot of thought. It validated something in me. I think I didn't after architecture, I never had a desire to get my license. I don't know. Maybe I felt like I didn't have like. There's a certain. I feel like there is a certain way. A lot of my architecture friends carry themselves in a beautiful way, but there was devotion to it, and I didn't feel like I had that. But being able to land these opportunities kind of validated what I could do, I guess. But I don't. I mean, clearly, it wasn't enough to keep me in that field.
Mm.
Yeah.
So how did that go down as far as you leaving architecture? And I know that you went and lived in Asia for a while. Was that what happened immediately after that?
Yeah, I am. I think one day, not I think I know. One day at my desk, I just saw myself in that same seat like 10 years down the line,
Yeah.
and it was like, whoa, I don't know. And then this was like 2007, so not quite yet with the financial happenings in 2008 and 2009. I think I have my years correct, but yeah, I wanted to, I guess, kind of avoid that, but I don't know. I've always been very. It was a mixture of running, but there's always been an I think it's in everyone, but I've really leaned into just exploring when I was younger, whether it be the forest in my backyard. And so I think me quitting my job and going to Asia, finding a job on Craigslist actually for overseas was just another experience in this common thread. And before that, I spent some time in Alaska. So yeah, it had to happen. Yeah.
Tell us about your time in Alaska. So you went to Alaska actually before you went to Asia?
I did. I went to Alaska while I was still in college the first time,
Okay.
and I fished salmon commercially in Kodiak for 3 years, 18, 19, and 20.
Was this before or after the Deadliest Catch
This was
came out?
before.
Okay.
So yes, when after that came out, jobs were filling up a little quicker. But yeah, it was before.
And was that for the paycheck or just the adventure, or how did you end up going to Alaska?
I can honestly say both.
Yeah.
I definitely heard about the opportunities financially, and I don't know. Working really hard in the summer and making a lot of money kind of frees you up. I think a lot of my movements in life is I'm looking for freedom in some way, shape, or another, but the adventure as well.
Yeah. And my impression is that's a pretty dangerous job. I mean, what was it like to be out on the boat?
Yeah. I mean, I actually set netted, I gill netted. So gill nets, we are, and the operation that I worked for, and we're still, I spoke with her about 3 weeks ago before I came here. And so we've been connected for a while, but long story short, we fish a little closer to the shore, in these long 200 fathom nets that go out 200 fathoms into the bay. So a lot of times we would come back to the to land and stay in our cabins, and there were bear everywhere. And just some of the stuff I did when I was young, just younger. Yeah, I didn't. The danger and the threat level just wasn't in my radar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because this is going to come up later,
Sure.
What was your family's reaction to you going out there?
Yeah, my mom, my dad. I have a interesting relationship with my dad, or he's passed now. But growing up, my mom in Alaska, my mom was she always was concerned about my safety, always. And at that time, we had like a satellite phone, and and I think dial-up. No, I'm a little dial-up was well, the ease, the ease of communication with you know, internet and Wi-Fi just wasn't really there at that time. But so I would call once a week every Sunday.
Okay.
And so that made her feel well. But my dad was cool with it. Just my mom she was pretty nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, did you go back out to Alaska before you went to Asia, or?
I went back after I came back
After
from
you came
Asia.
back.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us about this Craigslist ad that you saw.
Yeah.
How did that go? How did you end up
Absolutely.
in Asia?
Yeah. There was and I should add that, you know, when I got my job in Alaska, it was on some commercial fishermen's clearinghouse. It's some strange website, and so I don't know. I think this was just like that kind of primed me for this experience. But yeah, it was just a job to teach English, and housing was included, and then you get a paycheck, which was interesting to me. My rent wasn't crazy at that time, so that wasn't really my impetus for leaving. I think, yeah, it was just what a weird place to have a listing for a job to teach English in Korea. And I think within a month, maybe a month and a half, I was already over there.
Wow.
After seeing that ad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that includes like quitting your job and everything?
Quitting my job,
Wow.
getting my medical medical checkup.
Wow.
I had to get my degree apostilled. I'm saying this incorrectly maybe, but it's just getting it certified to be validated overseas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did that feel impulsive to you, or I don't know? Was
no.
That, yeah.
I think. Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off so abruptly.
No. Go
yeah,
ahead.
I think. No, because I was running, so nothing felt impulsive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess with your parents and friends and stuff, I mean, how did you communicate that with them, and what was their reaction?
Skype was pretty big at that time, so I guess I told them I would just communicate with them through that. No, everyone usually thinks my experiences are pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
My family is very supportive. Yeah, I'm grateful for that. I have a lot of support there, a lot of encouragement. I will say, my time overseas, I have 5 sisters, and I haven't been to any of their weddings.
Wow.
So I missed a lot while I was over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you went to Korea, and you ended up staying there for a long time.
Yeah, Korea was my first destination.
Okay.
Stayed there for maybe 7-8 years.
Wow.
I came back after my first and second years there. I came back after my first year to help my mom rehab from knee surgery.
Okay.
And then went back over there, came back, and then I stayed over there for a long period of time.
Were you anticipating staying that long?
No.
Initially? Yeah.
No, and most people, from what I've heard and read at the time, most expats don't expect to stay, or they just, I don't know. You just go over there and just soak it all in.
Yeah. I guess give us a taste for your life there, and that must have been, culture shock and language difference.
Yeah.
But obviously you were liking it if you kept going back.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I had a wonderful experience overseas. It's kind of hard to sum it all up in a concise manner. I would say, again, we were speaking about it earlier, you get out of anything what you put in. And yeah, I loved the language. I loved all the beautiful people over there. I definitely poured in as much as I could because I wanted to get as much as I could, which I do feel now looking back that I'm not sure if there's a selfish aspect to that, but I poured in a lot to my time over there, and I had a great time. I think I'm answering your question, but it was for sure a culture shock. It was different, but yeah, everyone has a story, an amazing story, an amazing life, and it was just fun to give them a different opinion of, there wasn't many people my skin tone over there, so
Right.
so I felt sort of responsible
Wow.
to carry myself
Okay.
the best way I could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And were you teaching what age
I was.
group?
Oh, I taught. So my first school I taught at, it was a middle school. It was Guri Guri Middle School, and that was tough because I remember when I was in middle school. That's at the age where your hormones are starting to do their thing, and
Yeah.
you don't know who you are or what you are. I don't know who I am or what I am now, but yeah. So I taught middle school my first year. Actually, I taught there 2 years, I believe. Maybe I taught 3 years total. And then I taught high school, which was really cool. Just because they are at the age where they're getting ready, they're preparing for university, and so they're taking the English lessons seriously. Where in middle school, it's just a chance to play with the foreign teacher.
Yeah.
You know.
And did you know any Korean going into that, or
I did not.
yeah, did you have to pick that up pretty fast, or like how were you communicating with?
Yeah, you can get
Koreans?
around in Korea. You can get around pretty decently without learning the language. But
Okay.
you pick up words just by you're fully immersed.
Okay.
But I don't know. I firmly believe that the more I could implement myself into the culture in all aspects, the more I'm going to get out of it. And so I studied hard, and then I actually went to a it's an Ohakdang. It's like a language institute, and I studied there for a while.
Wow.
Yeah, I just tried to speak Korean as much as I could. Unfortunately, Koreans are trying. Not unfortunately, but I'm an opportunity for someone else to learn their English.
I see.
And so usually the conversations went that way.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And how were you mentioned you were the foreigner now?
Yeah.
That must have been an interesting experience. And were the Koreans welcoming and what was that experience like?
Yeah. You're exotic. Same way I find people from other countries exotic. But there is, Korea's pretty heavily westernized. When I spent time in China, and I don't want to jump off of Korea into China, but some of the rural areas, you might be the first non-Chinese person they've ever seen.
Wow.
With Korea, the U.S. presence has been there for some decades.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, yeah, as far as some heartbreaks I had later on down the line, if I went back today, it would feel it would feel homey.
Yeah. What was your community or social network like? Were you friends with mostly Koreans or other expats? Or?
Yeah. I was intentional about creating as much of a balance as I could. I was also young, and so my hormones were going crazy. But yeah, I had friends that were also teaching or studying from another country. But I did my best to commune with as many of the native Koreans as I could. Yeah, that was intentional.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It sounds like just an awesome, fun experience, an adventure. Yeah. You're in your 20s, and you kept going back. At some point, it must have become kind of more serious.
Sure.
I mean, were you thinking you might just stay in Korea long term, or?
Where did it begin? Yeah, the longer you're over there, you have a larger employment history here in the States. So I don't think I thought about that too hard. I think I had my come to Jesus moment eventually, but this was after China. I actually had a dream. I had a dream that brought me home. I had a dream and a pretty unfortunate completion to a relationship. And I think the combination of that dream, which was like vivid, it was clear. Like that, I had really good clarity at that time. And so, not to jump back on Alaska, but when I came back, I had such a large gap in my work history. I couldn't find a job.
Yeah.
And so I went back to Alaska. But yeah, that's neither here nor there right now.
Okay. I guess talking about the timeline then. So you were in Korea for a while. Now you brought up China. Did you end up in China eventually?
Yeah. I was doing all sorts of things in Korea, and one of them was playing a little bit of basketball on an amateur level. But we had an opportunity to play in China, and so I did that a couple times. And then while I was in China, an opportunity to teach physical education of all subjects. I have no experience at an international school popped up, and so I took that, and so I was in China for a while. And as I was in China, so I was in Korea for about 7-8 years, China for about a year and a half. I'll say off and on 2 years, and then Japan. But but timeline as in years.
That you kind of answered my question.
Okay.
And I know you actually went to North Korea for a bit. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, we through the same organization that I started playing basketball with in Korea. We went to South Korea. Excuse me, I should make that clear. In South Korea, we had an opportunity to go to North Korea, which was I don't know how to even. It's funny. I think in every going to North Korea, like the people everywhere are the same. I think sometimes we're just kind of herded in directions based on how our governments feel. And so the people in North Korea were amazing. It was a very controlled experience. Very dark at night, very little light, even in the city. I don't know, that experience. I just put things into perspective for me at the time, and I don't talk about it much, but when I do, people find it extremely fascinating.
I mean, not many people can say they've been to North Korea.
That's true.
Not many Americans.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to share from your time in Asia? It sounds like after 7 or 8 years, I did want to ask you. You were there for a long time. Was that putting a strain on? What was your relationship like with people back in the U.S. during that time?
I wrote more emails during that time. Facebook helped me maintain relationships, but they were great. Yeah. They were good. Yeah.
So you kind of mentioned things came to a conclusion for you. You felt a very clear sense or urge to go back to the U.S. Now, was that hard on the flip side? I mean, were you leaving a lot of relationships over in Asia? Or I guess just tell us what that transition was like for you.
Yeah. It was, and remember before this interview, I told you I was going to say as little as I could.
Yeah, okay. I'm the worst offender on that note. So.
Yes. I was so ready to go. I was so ready to go. Not due to like particular people. Yeah. But I guess the logistics of leaving a country after being there for that long is you either give stuff away or sell it on, whatever marketplace that people, frequent. And then, you just settle things and you come back. But yeah, coming back was a reverse culture shock.
Really?
Big time. It took me a while. Like it's waves.
Yeah.
A little bit of sadness. You know, it's bittersweet when you're leaving, and yeah, like when you're there, you wish you're here, and then when you're back home, you wish you were there again.
Yeah.
You really do get used to your environment.
I guess just out of curiosity, as far as, you know, those cultures are probably a lot different. Comparing and contrasting, like, what are some things maybe you like or don't like now that you've had that experience in both?
Don't like about
maybe what are some of the differences of the Asian culture versus U.S.? I mean, do you think they have things we could learn from, or vice versa?
Yeah. Yes. I was, and I have some friends that mentioned this as well. Like, I don't remember taking food home, like taking like takeout much. Like there's a community. Every train stop, like there is activity. You know, if you, and while the country or the city of Seoul does eventually go to sleep, there is just so much. It's very vibrant. It is small. I mean, Korea is, I think, the size of India geographically, like the population of Indiana.
Wow.
So it's not many people, and so everything is personal. You know, because the space is limited. A lot of movement. I think Western culture is influencing the diet over there. So you see bigger kids. Yeah, but I think at the heart of the culture, it's a very healthy culture. But, you know, geopolitically, I think it's stressed in some areas. But yeah, I felt very at home there, very comfortable.
Yeah. So you left your home for 8 years. You came back to the U.S. and is this what did you do when you get back to the U.S.? Did you went back to Alaska?
Yeah, so more like a decade. So when I came back, Korea, I went from Korea to China.
Okay.
And then to Japan, and then back to Korea before I came home.
Okay.
And so you were asking me what did I do after I came back? Yeah. I think I had, maybe $10,000, maybe $15,000. So I stretched that as far as I could. Mm-hmm. Came back in with my mom. Just worked pretty much worked any job I could. Mm-hmm. My dad was a hustler in a good sense. Like he worked hard, and so I just picked up a couple of can we curse on this?
Yeah.
A couple shady jobs that he shared with me, which were horrible, but it helped me to appreciate just appreciation. So did that for a while. I should add, while I was over in Korea, I started to write pretty heavily, and I wrote a lot of stories about my experiences over there.
Wow.
Then I started writing just short screenplays. Mm-hmm. Got real deep into that. I think I was in the phase where I wanted to be seen, and writing a story with my voice was my opportunity to potentially get it out there and get it seen. So I did that for a while. And then, I was like, this type of writing is probably not going to work out right now. And so then I went into marketing, like content writing and whatnot. And I took that all the way into 2025. I did content writing for cigarette companies, real estate industry, and then the longest stint was my longest time was with a company in the oil and gas industry. Mm-hmm. So writing their content.
Yeah. Now, at some point, you ended up at the Earthship Academy in Taos. And again, we can get into anything on here.
Sure.
Milcia, she had a psychedelic drug experience that really kind of changed the direction of her life, and you've shared some details about a similar thing. Was that related to you ending up at Earthship, or can you tell us where that fits into things and about that experience?
Yeah. So in 2023, I turned 40, and when I was growing up, you hear about the midlife crises, and I'm sure there's a better term for that. but like it's real. It was real for me, so real. And yeah, I I was and I am to this day so grateful for the opportunities I had. And the job I had, I really held on to due to my father. And I guess this is a long way to get into the earthship and my experience over there in Taos. But yeah, it just did not feel. It didn't feel authentic, and I just felt like I needed to go through something. And again, my job was amazing. My supervisor, Kathy, I'll just say Kathy, an amazing leader, so supportive. And so if I didn't have that position, understand what I was going through, I don't know, this would look different. Of course it would look different. So anyway, a lot of support there. Left my job, and then I just took the next 8 months to work on my house and just to get ready for the academy at Earthship Biotexture the following year, because that was part of the plan with leaving my job. I wanted to simplify things, and I felt like that was my opportunity to do things different. I'm 40. I want to do things different. My body feels good. Like I need to just dive into this.
Yeah.
So I did that. I eventually went over to New Mexico. I applied for the opportunity to learn at the academy. Told them about myself, what I was doing, and I think it was one of their biggest groups. We had like 36 students,
Wow.
and we gelled like it was family. Like people were crying when we were finished.
Wow.
Yeah, it was intense. And I feel like I'm gonna get like I'm gonna have a hard time explaining my experience there. It's so layered that it's hard to summarize it. But I think like my spirit has always been Yeah, I don't think I went there just to study earthships. And like I felt it, but it was confirmed on this experience we had down in the Rio Grande Gorge. It was actually myself, Danny, another friend by the name of Jeremy, and I think it's safe just to mention their first names, and Sean. Awesome people with our own challenges, and so we all had, I think we were all seeking some sort of answers. And my ego definitely controlled my ego. So before I entered this experience, I was at the time the academy was finished. I was work trading at a farm nearby, a farm that had a hostel also on the property. It was a quirky but awesome setup. That's how Taos is. It's different, but people were telling me, I was mentioning how I'm going to have this experience, and they were like, just, go into it. However you go into it, that's the state that will be amplified. And so I really was intentional about that. But somehow my ego got into it, and I ended up taking a lot. All in all, go ahead.
We're talking about mushrooms.
Yes,
correct?
we are.
Yep.
Yeah, so, yes, I should have made that clear. So it was probably about 16, 17 hours my entire experience.
Wow.
But the theme of it was letting go. And it was so hard to have that ego death in the experience. I'm leaving a lot out. But ultimately, the next day after my experience, I had a friend that called me. And he was like, he wished me good morning. And then he said he wanted to share his dream with me. And I was in his dream.
Wow.
And he said in his dream, I asked him who I was. And Rich, the night before during that experience, this is the next day. So the night before during that experience, that's exactly what I was asking the universe.
Wow.
But without words. It was so the feeling was so strong behind my heart. And then I asked him, like, well, what did you tell me? And he just said, I told you that you have to figure that out. You have to find that out for yourself.
Wow.
And I think I've been on that my entire life, as we all have. Like even this moment now, like just, well, we didn't get into that yet, but just being here, it's being honest about that search for what I really am.
Yeah. So my impression was that was kind of a big. We used the term inflection point a few days ago.
Yes, we did.
When you told me that story the first time, that my impression was that was kind of an inflection point. It has been an inflection point for you. How did that change things for you, and maybe determine what you're doing now?
Yeah, great question. I sold my house 7 months later.
Yeah.
Which was which was a challenge. You know, yeah, I feel like there's a little bit of emotion in me, so it's kind of hard for me to speak clearly. So I apologize to the listeners and to you. Yep. I think I've always felt like there was just a lot more to this than what anyone limits it to. And like the fact that like what I was feeling that night or experiencing, and this person who called me was in New York and I'm in New Mexico. And like by this time he had already been gone for a week. Wow. And I don't know, it just, there is it just, there's structure to this. And I think that structure is what we were talking about earlier about just trying and giving yourself a chance. Yeah. And when that is applied, it can only be beneficial to you. And so, yeah, I think that that experience just validated some feelings I had for a while.
Did that kind of like light a fire under you to try to figure out? You said the question was like, who am I? Maybe make you more intentional about focusing your life on that versus just like, having a salary and kind of living a more conventional lifestyle in the Phoenix area.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I like the way you put that. Yeah. In addition, I think I'm never going to, I think it will be harder for me to gain that clarity if I am trying to control the narrative. I just don't think the two can exist together. And yeah. So like the attachments and like if I'm owned by my control, I don't think it's going to, I don't know what that looks like. Well, I do know what that looks like. It's confusion, so I just think, the fact that my higher self was communicated to me through a friend, it just, it lit a fire.
Yeah. It seems to me that maybe you have a lot of other gifts or capabilities that that you have inside of you, and it's like you need to figure out how these things are going to be revealed to the world, and you're kind of valuing that more than the things that you had. You had a beautiful house, You showed me pictures the other day. You had remodeled the entire bathroom, and it looked amazing. And so you sold that recently. So to me, you're taking very intentional steps to answer that question, or to try to answer it, which I really respect. That's a lot farther than a lot of people would go. So I guess that kind of brings us to the present. You're sort of on the precipice of like embarking on this journey, I guess. Tell me if I'm summarizing this incorrectly, but tell us where you're at now. You have this trailer, and you're about to take off on a big road trip. So tell us about all that, and maybe your feelings or state of mind at the moment.
Yeah. Yes, I have a 2022 Winnebago Micro Mini that I'm pulling with my 4Runner. So, yes, so part of the plan was to come here and support you on your beautiful build. In addition to supporting you was to prime myself more. Your last build, I returned home feeling very empowered, capable. Yeah, the removing of conveniences really made me feel like, yeah, I can do this. I can do this. And so, yeah, after this, I am going to head west to California, do my best to hug the coast and just take my time and write, do yoga on the beach.
Wow.
A large part of these next moments will be looking for land. I love Arizona so much, but I am ready for just a little more water, a little more greenery, if possible. So, yeah, after California, I am going to head up into Oregon for the first time and look at some properties, perhaps go up to Washington. Would love to visit Danny on the way back down New Mexico. So, yeah, this next experience feels more unfamiliar than past experiences.
Yeah, that's kind of been the surprising thing to me, because to me, I would be terrified to go to Asia.
Yeah.
And the way you're framing this is somehow this seems more of a break from maybe yourself or your past life, or maybe even a break from, it potentially could have more of an impact on relationships with your mom or other important people to you. Are you able to put that into words, why this is so radical for you compared to going to Asia?
That's a very big question, Rich. Wow. I guess the best way I can answer it is to take it back to the experience I had on psychedelics back in Taos. I actually called my mom that night after I got back from the gorge, the Rio Grande Gorge, and we were just, I was still heavily in my experience, and I needed something concrete, like I needed something familiar, and I called my mom. We have always had a very, very, very close relationship, and yeah, like when I was talking to her, I FaceTimed her actually, and so like in the FaceTime video, she's like turning colors, and it's I was deep in it.
Wow.
And she knew something was wrong, and she actually thought that I was. She actually thought I didn't want to live anymore.
Wow.
Because of the conversation we were having, but she didn't know what I was experimenting with.
Yeah.
Long story short, it was really hard to. I thought I wasn't coming back. And it was really hard to let her go.
Wow.
more than anyone else. I mean, I love my family. I'm so blessed to have been born to them. But yeah, my mom and I have always shared a very, very, very deep connection. And I even get choked up now because as she gets older, like she's here right now visiting in Arizona and I'm not there. Just to see her face. Like, I often wonder, like, what's after this? You know, am I ever going to see her? I'll feel her. I don't know. I guess it's the attachment to what's familiar, and her face is familiar. You know, my dad passed a couple years back, and, you know, we communicate differently now. Just not through words. But I don't know. Even to this day, like, I've been trying to prepare myself for, you know, when she does, you know, transition. But yeah, so this being away from her right now and, you know, trying to give this time to myself. Yeah, it's hard not to call her, you know, as much as I did when I was, you know, in my house back home. Yeah.
I mean, just for me, that was one of the hardest parts of my journey was choosing myself and what I wanted to do over the expectations of other people, and especially when it's your parents, making them upset with some of my decisions. That was really hard. So that's why your story and where you're at is really resonating with me a lot. And the only thing I can say is that I want all of the people in my life to be living their full life and be their full selves. And, you know, I would encourage people to do whatever it takes to pursue that, because, like, I want to see the full version of you. You know, you have all these experiences. I feel like all these things have happened in your life for a reason, and you already have so many great skills and abilities and your mindset and your care for yourself and the people around you. I just think that you have a lot to offer, and it's like I would encourage you to do whatever it takes to unleash that, because I feel like the world really needs that for some reason. And
I appreciate that.
yeah, I feel like you know, you need to see yourself what you're capable of. So that's kind of the most important thing, and you know, do it for you.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like that's sort of where you're at today. Is there anything I left out, or something else you have to say about where you're at now, or just reflecting on your journey so far?
That's my answer. That's my response to the silence. There's so many, I don't know. There's so much about me right now that yeah, I'm in my feeling. There's a lot about me right now that's hard to define. Not saying that it has to be defined, but just to share, to communicate what I'm feeling. It's hard to find the words.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm really interested to hear how this road trip's gonna go for you.
Yeah, me too.
It seems to me that this is just shaping up to be like a transformational or maybe a liberating moment for you.
Yeah.
And
I think so.
This is all, you know, coming in the weeks and months and potentially years ahead. So I'm just really happy for you that, again, we keep using the term, like, give yourself a chance, and I mean,
yeah,
you're definitely doing that.
That's your phrase.
I'm happy that you're giving yourself a chance, and you've kind of laid it all on the line. And you know, I tell people all the time, it's like that's the most important thing in life. So I feel like your priorities are really in the right place, and where I'm at now, I can just say that this, if you keep following that path long enough, like, you know, only positive things are going to happen.
Yeah.
And I did go through a lot of rocky times with my parents, but they've been out here helping with the dome, and we're in a really good place now. And you know, I'm happy with what I'm doing in life, and they can appreciate that, even though maybe it's not what they had envisioned.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
You say rocky time with your parents before or while you were building up to this. I think that's different than mine, but can you kind of go into that?
Actually, So I did talk about this on a previous episode.
Okay,
So
okay.
I will refer people to the.
Fair enough.
There's an episode I call it "Talking About Struggling," and I did
Okay.
go several years without talking to them, and
Okay.
and yeah, I kind of detailed that there. So
Awesome.
And I also don't want to derail. This is about you.
Okay.
So, well, I would say this is kind of like a to be continued.
Oh, wow.
I'd love to have you back, and hear how this journey is going to go. I'm really interested, and I think that everyone's going to have a lot to learn from what you go through, and most importantly, I think you're going to have a really meaningful experience.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can feel it. I do feel it at times. I do.
Well, thanks, Adé. I don't know. That's kind of it on my end. Final chance.
Thank you. Thank you for thank you, universe, for allowing Rich and I to cross paths, because yeah, it's nice when I can see someone all in. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing your story. Like I said, I think you've just had an interesting journey so far, and I'm just really proud and respectful of what you're doing, and putting yourself into the unknown. I hope that something really great will come out of this for you.
Thanks. Me too.
Okay. That's it for this episode, and I will talk to you all later.